Imagine a world where doctors help you get healthy and not just respond to your sickness. A world where experts empower you to feel good and bring peace, joy, and love to yourself and the world. An integrative approach to health. Dr. Arlene Dijamco is on a mission to wake medicine up and raise the bar of health with her show, The MultiDimensional MD. Call 678-495-4345 to talk to her live on air, or put your comments on Facebook Live at UI Media Network with your questions, concerns, suggestions, or just to say hello. Don't forget to like and share and spread the message as she helps activate the natural healing force within all of us. Let's join Dr. Arlene Dijamco in bringing spirit back to medicine on the MultiDimensional MD.
Dr. Arlene Dijamco, the MultiDimensional MD. Thank you so much for joining me on our second episode here, and we are going to shake it up naturally with tension and trauma release exercises. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about why I wanted to have this show. I wanted to help wake up medicine, to bring spirit back, to help bring that multidimensional aspect back, because sometimes patients will come in and they say they don't feel well, they feel out of balance, and we run these tests and everything, and then they're told, there's nothing wrong with you, but they leave unsatisfied because they're wondering, but I don't feel well. And so we know that stress plays such a role in any kind of illness, whether it's cardiovascular disease, stroke, mental health. And I want to be able to talk about a more multidimensional aspect so that we can address these illnesses maybe even before they start or before we're even able to pick them up. There's so many great stories I have. I remember growing up that I had a family member that needed a prescription cream. It was actually a steroid cream. She had severe eczema. But the most interesting thing was the only kind of cream that worked had to come from a specific hospital. It was the one that my parents worked at. And so as long as it had the label from that hospital, the cream worked. But if it came from any other pharmacy, it didn't work. And that idea intrigued me because I knew that it wasn't actually the medicine that was helping her heal. There was some other aspect there. And this is that multidimensional aspect of what else is there besides that physical component that impacts our health. And so I want to talk to you about that more today. And here I have my guest is Maria Alfaro. She is a great friend of mine. She is a senior teacher trainer for tension and trauma release exercises. I want to read a little bit about her. She's also a Neurogenic Yoga certification trainer. She has a background in yoga, Chinese martial arts, and Esalen massage. Maria has been training with Dr. Berselli, TRE's founder, since 2004 and teaching his work ever since. Over the past 15 years, she's taught TRE to thousands of people in the US, in Europe, and in Canada, Asia, and the Middle East. She assisted Dr. Berselli in numerous trainings in the United States, South Africa, Brazil, and Japan, and she led hundreds of public workshops and over 100 certification trainings worldwide. Maria is also one of two creators of Neurogenic Yoga, the sister method of TRE. So she trained me in tension and trauma release exercises, and so I'd like her to introduce her here. And hello, Maria.
Oh, hi, Arlene. Thank you so much for having me. This is very exciting.
Thank you so much for being here. And I wanted to just, start to introduce people to TRE because this is one of those things that I feel is so helpful and in terms of like addressing the stress response and being able to restore balance to the body. And instead of focusing so much on illness, I want people to be able to support and nourish that natural healing force within. It's what I've been working on and studying ever since my first year of medical school and then on when I went off to integrative medicine. So can you tell us more about TRE?
Okay, so theory really comes from the work of Dr. Berselli, and David was a psychotherapist in war zones for 20 years. So he was exposed to the severe trauma of war. So this work was born from the need of helping those people and helping himself. But then over the years, when he came back to the States, he also realized that it's really good for stress. Because if you think about the stress and trauma in a continuum that goes from the mild stress of being late to the severe trauma of being in a bombing, but those responses are similar, and it's just a matter of intensity and duration. So David observed that the people contract under severe stress. Let's say there is a bombing, nobody will go like this, right? Everybody will contract to protect themselves. He also noticed that little kids up to age 4 or so in this situation, they tend to tremor and shake. And they also tend to bounce back to a state of homeostasis and well-being quicker than the adults. So at that time, 30 some years ago, he put together a theory that now seems to be confirmed by the millions of people in 60 countries that have been trying this. And the theory goes, if we have a genetically encoded mechanism that is involuntary, meaning we cannot not do it, that makes us contract to protect ourselves when we feel stressed or endangered, there should also be a mechanism that makes us release the contraction once the stress is over. But since that involves shaking and tremoring, as human, we tend to repress it and numb it because it has a strong negative social connotation. People tend to be sick or weird or weak or guilty or nervous if they shake. And that's why when we figure it out as little kids, not because they tell us, but because we just figure it out as we figure out the societal norms, we tend to repress it. But your listener, you yourself, you might have experienced in life, like if you were in an accident or somebody told you about their accident or you watch an accident on TV, you might feel, or maybe you were interviewed and you didn't know what to say, or the police pull you over, or somebody give you bad news or is aggressive towards you. We tend to have the response of slight vibration in the body that is similar to when we have too much coffee. So your listener will be familiar with that because at least once in your lifetime you experience that, and then we tend to repress it. So if nothing else from this talk, they can take away the possibility that actually this tremor in response is not a pathology, but can actually be beneficial to release the pent-up tension.
I remember that happened to me after I gave birth. And I thought it was from the medications initially. And the nurses, they said, oh, that happens, but no one could really tell me what it was, what that response was. I thought I was cold, or maybe I was just scared. And it wasn't actually until I met you that I learned that, oh my gosh, this is a natural mechanism. And I'm so glad to know it. Just the understanding of it really helps, because anytime I feel that now, then I know not to suppress that kind of response. If it's appropriate. Because of course I tell people, well, if it's a surgeon and they're nervous for their surgery, it's probably not a good time to shake. So, but if, after the birth, it's a natural thing to do. And actually, it feels really good.
Definitely. And actually, in the so-called primitive societies, like in Africa, villages, and so they consider the birth process completed once the woman stops shaking.
Yeah, I wish that, the midwives and the OBs, I wish they had that kind of understanding when women are delivering, so that they wouldn't be scared, because I think that a lot of people would be afraid and try to shut it down. And it actually takes an enormous amount of energy to shut it down. That's at least was my experience.
Yes, definitely. The body wants to do it. Yes.
And it happened also to a family member who was actually had a near drowning experience, experienced some vertigo in the pool, and then didn't know which way was up or down. And then when he came out, he started shaking and shaking and shaking. It came in like waves and waves. And, initially, I was so glad I had this kind of understanding, because I thought if I didn't, we thought he could be having a seizure, but he could talk to us. It didn't have the other qualities of a seizure. It was completely different. And I asked him, I was like, well, he could stop. He was like, yes. And I was like, well, but it would take so much energy. And he was like, yes. And I was like, would you feel better if, well, I'll stay with you, because I had seen this before. I was like, well, let everyone else leave the room for now, so that you can shake freely. And he was like, he wasn't saying anything, but just like nodding his head. Yes, please.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a great story. I remember that happened while you were still in training, if
Right.
I will remember.
And it's amazing. There's probably so many other things that go along with it, because with that episode, he was actually also bringing up fluid from the lungs. And so this was, I'm wondering what else the shake could be possibly helping with.
Is that a question?
Well, sure.
Well, it can really help with any kind of things that are related to stress and trauma, and stress and trauma are part of life. So people have a lot of symptoms. As a doctor, you know that the number one killer is stress. So a lot of the symptoms that people experience, and even a lot of disease, either they are caused by stress or they're made worse by stress. And that goes for things which are physical, like, let's say, for example, gastrointestinal problems, or that they are on the cusp, like insomnia or anxiety or panic attacks, or, the many symptoms of PTSD. So all of those things tend to improve with the absence of stress. So, the psychotherapeutical world is getting more interested in this somatic modalities, because they're realizing that to talk about the story, so what happened, especially if the story is intense. Let's take the soldiers, for example. It's not that they are the only one having PTSD, but it's definitely a category of people very likely to have it if they have been in combat or so. So those symptoms that they have, difficulty sleeping, irritability, panic attacks, violence, drugs, etc., they're not symptoms of a disease organism. They're actually symptoms of a very healthy organism, which is reacting to the fact that it's too wound up, too overwhelmed by excessive negative stimulations. So instead of when somebody, let's say again, the war example, if somebody has been to war and saw horrible things, to talk about it with a therapist and to start like that is not very helpful, because it might re-traumatize them. It might take them back to those experiences. While if they can tell the story, if they can relax first, so down-regulate the nervous system, which is what this work is doing, basically if they can calm down the nervous system and go like, literally, then the story has a very powerful integrative value. It helps the organism making sense of what happened. But starting with the story is not very helpful if the story is intense. And therapists are getting that, and that's why more and more, especially here in California, they are getting trained to start their client with this, so that they are more relaxed, and then access the story from that place of safety.
So to start from the body, and then
Yes.
let the body's reflex unwind some of the intensity. And then when they're more able to talk about their story.
And also then the story is instead of being something that beats them up again, it becomes a way that the body, mind, and psyche makes sense of what happened and can move on.
So we're going to talk more about this after a short break. And you are watching the MultiDimensional MD. I'm Dr. Arlene Dijamco, here to wake up medicine to help empower you to supercharge your health in all dimensions. And a big shout out to our friends at WDJY 99.1 FM in Atlanta and WTTA 101.2 FM in Kentucky, Ohio. You can now watch and listen to all exclusive and uncensored content 24/7 at uimediaapp.com. If you have questions or would like to say hello, please call 678-495 4345. We will be right back with Maria Alfaro talking about tension and trauma release exercises and her experiences around the globe.
Hi, I'm Greta Full, President of Golden Home Services, a premier private home care service for seniors in Georgia for almost 2 decades now. We all have parents, and I know I love my parents more than anything else in this world. And because of that, Golden Home Services makes sure we care for your parents as if they were our parents. Call 678-242-0084 anytime or visit goldenhomeservices.com to select from our range of affordable home care services.
Welcome back to the MultiDimensional MD. I'm Dr. Arlene Dijamco here with Maria Alfaro. And I want to talk to Maria. She's a senior teacher trainer of tension and trauma release exercises and neurogenic yoga. And Maria, I want to know more about, well, your experiences around the globe and what you've seen TRE help with in these areas that are in huge crisis and a lot of stress.
Okay, so first of all, it's important to mention how this works briefly. So when David figured out that the shaking and tremoring in a natural manner, in an involuntary manner, can be beneficial for the body and the psyche, he set on a search to make it happen again. So he designed this simple set of exercises, which are designed to fatigue and stretch some muscles in the legs, to once the person understands what it's about so that the mind doesn't resist it, it sort of jumpstart this natural release response again in the body, which has been dormant. Mm-hmm. So what I noticed, because I've been teaching this in many countries, probably 10 countries in different continents, the beauty of it is that really the body is the same, regardless of our backgrounds or
right.
Political orientation, race, or spiritual beliefs. The body reacts.
Right. No matter what you believe, we're all
exactly.
We're all
the only
same.
thing that people need to believe is the fact that the body can help itself. That's the only belief system that is kind of helpful in this kind of work. Otherwise, there would be too much resistance. What I noticed that certain countries that tend to be socially or historically more contained, let's say in the Arab countries, for example, where men and women are not working together as much. And also where, like in Palestine, there is let's say people in the Middle East, they don't tend to have really big emotional reactions. They tend to be very contained because that's the way that they cope with their daily stress, so their societal setup is to stay calm.
Okay.
And so they tend to contain this mechanism more, than let's say here. Also here, for example, here in the States, men and women don't really have a problem to do this activity together, while in certain countries, men and women operate better when they are separated. They just feel safer, okay, because that's what they are used to do when they do activities that involve the body. Mm-hmm. But apart from these small differences, I will say that in general, people react to really similarly. There are different ways, patterns of expression for this work that repeat themselves around the world in different combinations. People report similar benefits. One thing that I notice is the more the people practicing it are stressed out, the more they are under severe stress, the more they tend to feel more significant results immediately. Because let's say that you a veteran, for example, right. They tell me I don't work a lot with veterans, but I work with few hundreds of them, or the few thousand people that I maybe taught 10,000 people, I don't know, a few hundreds veterans. So the veterans tend to tell me things like, just after one experience, they tend to tell me things like, I had the first good night's sleep in 10 years.
That's amazing.
Or for the first time, I woke up without pain in my body like I have every morning when I woke up. While if the person is just mildly stressed, because of traffic or their kids getting B's at school, I don't know, something more minor, they tend to feel the effect less just because they are not as aware of the fact that
Okay.
they have so much stress in the body. This is the main difference that I noticed.
And
But otherwise,
you had
well,
mentioned that the main thing is the believing that the body can get better. Now, when you teach someone to do tension and trauma release exercises, do they necessarily have to believe that?
well, not necessarily, but what do they have to understand is the way that it works. They have to understand that basically what we have been talking about, that this is a natural response, that is safe, that is okay, that there is nothing wrong with them. Because you see, the mind, the cognitive mind, the cortex is used to run the show when we are awake.
Mm-hmm.
We operate from there. It's a controlling mechanism. Is everything that we do is voluntary, okay? There are very few things that are from the mind accepted that they are involuntary. I would say like sneezing, coughing, and maybe sex. I don't know. But we are not used. The mind wants to control what's going on. So this activity, once it starts in the body, to the mind, it feels like it's out of control. It is not,
Yes.
because the person can stop at any time.
Uh-huh.
But the mind goes like, who is doing this? I am not doing this. And just because of that, it's bad. Because it feels out of control.
If someone has that resistant response, then will it interfere with the reflex?
Yes, because the mind will tend not to want the body to go there, and it will tend to control it. So that's why I always, when I teach the public in any capacity, I always spend a significant amount of time explaining to them what it's about, explaining to them how it works, and really making them understand that it's perfectly fine if they don't like it to take breaks or stop, because then the mind goes like, okay, it still sounds pretty weird to me, but if I can take breaks and stop and I have some kind of control over it, then I will let you do it. So once that the ground is set, then the person can feel safe experimenting and relaxing into this response.
Okay. So that's an important thing to know, that we are going to the body for this reflexive response and asking the mind to accept that the body can rebalance and that the mind can allow it to do so and not to try to shut it down when we're trying to access it with these exercises.
Yes, and if they do that, then the fact that they believe or not that the body can heal itself is actually secondary. Of course, if they have that belief, it's going to be helpful, because then they're going to tend to relax more and trust their body, versus if they don't have that belief. But people shake even if they don't believe it. Many people, it's very rare that people don't have a response at all, okay? Very rare. But many people afterwards, they tell me, I thought that it was not going to work for me. I thought that it was very interesting, but actually my body would not go there, and actually did.
And I know a lot of people are wondering, they're like, if they are going to shake, it's a worry that they have. And if their shake is going to be okay, if they're going to be good enough. So
yes. And they can develop what we call tremor envy. Because
so the shake can be all different things. And it's not necessarily helpful for people to watch videos of it, because I know that everyone has their own response. But it's also, I think, important to know that the shake may not look like a shake.
Oh, yeah, very good point, Arlene. We call them tremors. We call them neurogenic tremors because they come from the nervous system. They can take a variety. We call them tremors for lack of better definitions, but it can be any kind of involuntary movement. For some people, it's twitching. For some people, is swaying. Because most of the time, we are lying on the ground when we actually let it happen. So for some people, it's a swaying of the legs. For some people, it's a running on their feet. Or some people have actual shake or vibration. For some people, it's very internal. It feels more like an electrical current or a buzzing. Somebody just described it as a whispering inside their body. People come up with pretty colorful description of what it looks and feels like. And it can be really different. Basically, as long as an involuntary movement that is generated by within the body and not by the person will, it qualifies.
And it could be even like non-motion, like a freeze kind of state.
Well, then when it's a freeze kind of state, it means like that the person is getting into some kind of reaction, which is possible. Let's put it this way. People, the majority of people on this planet, regardless if they've been, because we all have some stress or trauma in our life, but the majority of the people can learn to do this work in safety and can learn to be able to do it by themselves because they feel safe. Then there is a minority of people that needs to have some support just because they don't feel as comfortable with what's happening in their body. And there is a very small percentage, I would say it's maybe the 3 to 5% of the population that should not do this work initially because it's just too much for them. So let's say that some people have so much trauma that they don't know what it feels to feel safe in the body.
Yes.
They never experienced that. So they have those default reaction or either dissociating, checking out, or getting really anxious. If they do something like this, they might default to some of this reaction instead of feeling safe. So for those people, it's better to do something else first, like let's say massage or yoga or other modalities that are more guided so that they can develop a sense of safety in their body first and then do it later. So those people should definitely work with a practitioner, somebody like you who is certified. They know that people can have reaction and can help them navigate them.
Yes, I think that's really important to know. But I do also want to show some of your pictures from Palestine, and because I just think it's so powerful to see all these different groups that you work with. And these particular pictures we have, you were working with in the hospital with different nursing groups, and it was a group of women nurses and a group of male nurses and a physician, and you taught them, I guess, in the hallways of the hospital.
We had a little space. This is one of the biggest hospital in Palestine, so it's very big. And yes, they didn't have a lot of room. So yeah, I was teaching some of them in the hallway, and then we have to move all the furniture out of the meeting room. And it's always a little adventurous to teach on those places, but it was very, very well received. They loved it.
And how were they implementing it? Like, what is the plan for that? I know that you were teaching them and they were going to teach groups.
That was just a public workshop for them. It was not a training. When I did trainings there, I did several trainings over the years. They were mostly geared towards social workers and therapists, the people working with the local NGOs, working with women, working with children, working with the local population. So they were implementing it, working with the people that they were already helping. So that was the idea, to train people that are already helping the public to get over the constant trauma and stress that they are in.
And they have some severe trauma there. And I know you had mentioned before that, one of the men, his whole personality seemed to change and shift and lighten.
We saw some phenomenal shifts, people soften and be more happy. I mean, those people are very resilient, however. They have a lot of life in them. But they were, meaning even before doing this work, they have a lot of strength and they have a lot of love. But this work definitely helped them. They were reporting pretty major shifts in themselves.
Well, we're going to get ready to take a quick break, and we will be back to talk with Maria Alfaro, Senior Teacher Trainer for Attention and Trauma Release Exercises in Neurogenic Yoga. And we're going to talk a little bit more about anatomy behind TRE. You are watching the MultiDimensional MD, Dr. Arlene Dijamco, here to wake up medicine, empower you to supercharge your health in all dimensions. Connect with us online. You can follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spreaker, and other podcasting platforms as UI Media Network. Start 2020 with the UI Intentional Planners. Get your copy today at unitedmedia.myshopify.com. And keep in mind to tune in tomorrow at 4 p.m. EST as host Lorelei Robbins is going to interview author Felicia Love on Thank Your Lucky Stars show.
Download the UI Media Smart app at uimediaapp.com to watch and listen to all your favorite shows anytime from anywhere in the world. Shows that enrich, entertain, educate, and feeds the conscious cells throughout your body. We bring you never heard before topics in health, inspiration, music, psychics, numerology, current affairs, controversies, and much, much more. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.uimediaapp.com and start raising your frequency now.
Hi, welcome back. This is Dr. Arlene Dijamco, the MultiDimensional MD, and we are here with Maria Alfaro, Senior Teacher Trainer for Tension and Trauma Release Exercises and Neurogenic Yoga. We're going to talk a little bit more about the anatomy behind TRE. And I know that TRE creates this, that when we respond to stress, we contract our body. We have some sort of tension response in our body, and that our core muscles are really important here. So, Maria, can you tell us more about the main muscles involved?
Yes. So, of course, we can hold tension everywhere in the body, but the main muscle of contraction, also called the muscle of fight or flight, is the psoas muscle. So you can see this is the spine, these are the hips, and this is the thigh bones. Okay, they are the thigh bones. And the psoas is this one. This is the iliacus developed inside the ilium. So basically, the psoas is the main contractor, the flexor. So we use it all the time, even when we're sitting or walking. But when something happens, if we have to fight, it will contract to put strength behind our fighting. If we have to flee, it will contract to make us spring. And if we have to freeze and hide ourselves, it will contract also. So everybody has a tight psoas. The psoas is really big, like your fist, and is really long. It's about this long. So, and very deep in the body. Having a tight psoas, so everybody has a tight psoas. The matter is like, how tight is it? That's the question. So people will think, oh, if I have a tight psoas, I will have back problems. As a doctor, you know that tight psoas has a long, books have been written about the problems.
Sitting in this chair is not contributing to, lengthening the psoas. And
unless
also,
you sit cross-legged like I am.
Yes. And also the top of the psoas muscle, that's a great picture that you have. At the top, it's touching that 12th rib there. And right there is also where what they call the crura of the diaphragm, these tendons of the diaphragm attach. So that's huge in terms of any kind of like shock response, because when something happens to you that's really intense, then the tendency is to like hold the breath and and so
exactly.
Yes.
So you can have problem with physical problems like, let's say, sciatica, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, gastrointestinal problem, pain in any joint of the body. You can have anxiety. The adrenals, are just here in the back. So you can have problems with insomnia, panic attacks, drugs, all kind of things are related to this muscle being too tight. Also can be seizing irregularly, unevenly, depending on what happened. So all the body workers, doctors, etc., they know about these muscles and they try to release it. The two main approaches is either through stretching, so anything that brings you towards the back bend will give it a little nudge, or manipulation, which is really very uncomfortable because if it's so deep, it means that it doesn't like to be touched. Okay, so
osteopathy too.
Osteopathy.
Yes, not as uncomfortable. Yeah.
But those are sort of a palliatives approach because they are not going to be able to release the pent-up tension that is there for a lifetime. So with this work, the beauty of it is everybody that practice, the tremors can move around the body, but for some people, but most people will definitely feel them in the legs anyway. Actually, everybody will feel them in the legs. And when the legs are shaking, since the psoas muscle is attached to the femur bone, so when your femur bones are vibrating, that vibration is passively communicated to the psoas. So it's a very different approach. Instead of being something that we do to the psoas is doing it itself. So it's very different. It doesn't have to cease again afterwards. It doesn't have to get back to you. It's actually appears to be a cumulative kind of effect. The more you do it, the better it works.
It's like an internal kind of massage and wakes up the organs in the area. I know that the first time, the first weekend that I trained with you, it completely changed my digestion. And the thing is, I didn't think that my digestion was that bad. I just knew I had to eat well, or maybe I would take some herbal supplements, and I knew how to be fine. But after that weekend, my digestion completely changed for the better, and it has stayed that way, which is great because I also keep up with the practice of TRE.
That's great.
Yeah, so that seeing the length of the muscle where it attaches from the ribs and then all those lumbar vertebrae and then all the way down to the legs, this is the core of our body, and we have so many vital organs. And then knowing that it involves the diaphragm, which is right nearby. So any tension in the psoas will affect your breathing. And then every breath is less effective, less efficient. And we need that breathing. We know how important it is for every aspect of our health, whether it's feeling calm or the digestion, the breathing, cardiovascular, to be able to get oxygen all through the body, and then also to help detoxify as well.
Totally. And David talks a lot about this concept of pulsation. Basically, every organ is naturally pulsate.
Yes.
And that pulsation is what makes us feel safe. And that for human happens especially in the chest cavity, is connected to the breath, like you were saying. So if the diaphragm is really tight, people cannot take deep breaths. And not being able to take deep breaths creates anxiety. So that's one of the
so it becomes this
milestones.
Cycle. And
Yes.
There's different ways to approach it. You could go from like mindfulness and that awareness and meditation, or you could all go to the body and do these somatic approaches and TRE. And I think that's a neat thing to understand, like the different parts of the brain, just to help us understand how we can help rebalance ourselves. And can you tell us more about that, like the three parts of the brain?
So we really touched briefly about the anatomy, the neurology of this work. I mean, Bessel van der Kolk said that trauma imprints in the brainstem. Okay, so the brainstem is the most primitive part of the brain. It's the one that regulates, like a stick that inserts just below the brain and into the spine. And it regulates all the autonomic functioning in the body, like your heartbeat, your blood pressure, etc. So it's also the danger detector. So Bessel van der Kolk said that since the trauma imprints there is below the level of consciousness. Yes, that's a very great book, The Body Keeps the Score, from Bessel.
Yeah.
And so we need to find modalities that are addressing that instead of just addressing it cognitively. So the way it works is like, there are the three main parts of the brain: the cortex with all the cognitive and voluntary activity where we are most of the time. There is the limbic system, which is in the middle of the brain, also called the emotional brain or mammalian brain, less under our control. It produces and regulates emotion related to survival, so like fear and anger. And then last but not least, there is the brainstem. So the brainstem, we are unconscious of it because it digests your food. I mean, it does all the stuff that we don't pay attention to. However, the brainstem is also the danger detector. So when something happens, it will kick in because the cortex is kind of slow in reaction and also is too analytical in a life or death situation. You know, if somebody starts shooting, the cortex will try to figure out who is the person, is that the real gun? Well, you need to do something. So the brainstem kicks in, you do something to save the day in instant, and then in a good day, after that the situation is resolved, the the cortex will kick back in and create the story. Oh, there was a crazy guy with the gun, but Arlene stopped it with a karate move, and now we are all safe. This is a good day, okay? So that's how the brain works. In a bad day, if the trauma is too severe or too repetitive, like PTSD in a nutshell is being stuck in the brainstem. So basically, the person is so overstimulated that it cannot go back. It remains in a default state of alertness instead of bouncing back to be in a homeostatic place again. So meaning feeling safe and good.
So you're in a constant survival response.
Exactly. So that's what PTSD or high anxiety are, because there is nothing going on right now, but the person cannot read that because they are overwhelmed. So the tremor mechanism comes from the brain stem, which is we activated, it's like pushing the car that doesn't start. We jump started with some fatigue and a little stretch, but then when the mind is on board to let it happen, it really is generated from the brain stem. So it happens all below the level of consciousness, beyond the story. However, again, like I was saying earlier, the mind needs to be on board with saying, okay, I will let you do this because it seems to be a good idea, even if it feels a little strange.
I really love for people to understand this because I feel like it helps them to be less judgmental of themselves and for other people, to realize that when there are people that are experiencing PTSD or have high anxiety, that there are these patterns that get stuck in the body and they're functioning more from that lower brain. But to have that understanding helps you to have compassion that, oh, okay, it's a pattern that's stuck. This is why I'm acting like this. It's not because I'm not doing enough or I'm not being, who I want to be. It's just, I need to get unstuck from this pattern, but they don't necessarily know how. So we think about these veterans or people that have been through abuse, and they come back and they're just stuck and everything looks like a fire. Everything feels like a big deal. So they might hear a pop or the firework goes off and it feels like you're back in the war, which could be really great to have those reflexes when you are in that dangerous situation. It can help get you out of it. But when you're back in regular life, then it's less functional and it's hard. You hear a baby cry and you can't react in that same way and be able to bond in the way that you want to. But the great thing is that there are ways to address this, like using the TRE, tension and trauma release exercises. And I feel like it's a huge service for these people who have had a difficult time relaxing and returning to a state where they feel like themselves.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
And I just wanted to emphasize that because that understanding of coming from a neutral perspective of, oh, okay, this is what happened to me. This is the pattern that I'm running, but I can get out of the pattern, and there are ways to do that. Otherwise, you're just constantly looping and thinking that you're a bad person, and it just spirals down and down and down. So I would love to bring this to more groups and to be able to experience this and to work with. So if anyone out there, if you have connections with groups that could really benefit from it, whether it's anxious teenagers to the veterans to people that have survived abuse, then definitely get in touch with me, get in touch with Maria, because we would really like to help people in all these areas. So we're going to take another quick break. You're listening to the MultiDimensional MD and watching us. I'm Dr. Arlene Dijamco, here to help you supercharge your health in all dimensions. We're going to be right back with Maria Alfaro, the lead senior teacher trainer for tension and trauma release exercises and Neurogenic Yoga. Are you interested in buying or selling a home in the Atlanta area? Are you looking for an experienced, top-producing agent who consistently sells and closes homes year after year? If so, give Shira Cohen a call at 678-523-0757 or visit her website at shiracohen.atlantafinehomes.com to learn more. Her proven marketing methods, extensive resources, in partnership with Atlanta Fine Homes Sotheby's International Realty can truly make a difference when buying or selling a home.
This is Kurt Arsenault of Arsenault Advisory Group. Do you make a six-figure income but live paycheck to paycheck? You're not alone. Many six-figure income households will buy too much home and too much car, creating tremendous financial stress that builds debt when you should be building wealth. If you make six figures and live paycheck to paycheck, visit arsenaultadvisory.com and download our free ebook titled, I Make Six Figures and Live Paycheck to Paycheck. You have nothing to lose and potentially everything to gain. Visit arsenaultadvisory.com today.
Hi, welcome back. This is Dr. Arlene Dijamco, the MultiDimensional MD. We are here with Maria Alfaro, lead senior teacher trainer for attention and trauma release exercises and Neurogenic Yoga. And I want to continue our conversation about what TRE can do in the world. And it is taught in over 40 countries. And so, 41 now, 41.
60
countries.
over 60 countries. Yeah, I think we
Wow.
are
So this has
65.
been in the last few years, like 20 more countries. That's amazing. And a lot of people are not familiar with it unless they're in the trauma world. And I know that we talked about how useful it is for just stress and anxiety. I use it in my practice all the time. I teach groups in my practice, and some people have had more severe trauma, but other people are just having regular lives. It's the moms, it's the parents, dads, and life is stressful, and that is really the truth. There's going to be ups and downs no matter what, and so the more ways that we can learn to help us rebalance on a regular basis, then we can stay healthier and calmer and feel more fulfilled in our lives. But I also want to talk about ways, Maria, like what would you envision if you were to think, like, what could you do with TRE? How could we implement it? What if you had a wish, a dream of what TRE and could do in the world? What would you say?
Well, actually, with the TRE organization, we have this vision. We are talking about the vision of making it a household item by 2025, which, if you think about I've been practicing yoga since 86, okay? Back in 86, in Italy at least, it was considered a weird thing. People didn't know what it was. It's like, you do yoga, weird, Now everybody knows what yoga is. So I envision something similar for TRE, which doesn't necessarily mean like for yoga that everybody will do it, but everybody will know what it is. Everybody will have a vague idea. Oh, the shaking thing. Oh, that modality that helps you release stress.
Yeah, and it's starting already because it was in Oprah magazine last year.
Yes.
With Martha
and it
Beck.
was also on the Harper Bazaar UK.
Uh-huh.
They listed us as one of the, I forgot if it's 10 or 20 revolutionary healing modality of the century.
Wow. So you would love it to be like a known thing like yoga. And then since you were talking about yoga, I want to talk about a little bit about Neurogenic Yoga, which is the sister
thank you.
method of TRE, which is, yes. So tell us.
So, yeah, basically, since I've been immersed in yoga even longer than in TRE, David realized that for people who practice yoga or teaches yoga, the simple exercises can be a little dry. It's not very exciting for them. So he asked me and another yoga teacher, my partner, Jenica Mills, who is based in San Diego, so also here in California. He asked us to design a sister modality that instead of using those simple exercises that he designed, uses yoga to achieve the same result, make people shake. So basically, when people ask me, because I teach workshop for both modality, people call me and they're confused and they say, which one should I do? So I say, well, if you like to practice yoga, try neurogenic yoga. If yoga is not your thing, TRE is for everybody. So try TRE. An important thing that people need to understand also that all of those methods are just to reignite, to reactivate this natural response in the body. The response is natural. So once it's reactivated, once the mind is on board to the fact that it's okay
Right.
to do it,
Yes.
a lot of people, I will say at least between 60 and 70% of the people will not need to do anything to make it happen. Or maybe they can piggyback it on some other activities like walking or rollerblading or running, bicycling,
I
swimming,
love
whatever
that.
they like
Yes.
to do. And then take just 5 or 10 minutes out of their days to let this natural thing express. So it's not that, because the whole process, if you do TRE, I mean, if you do a session or a class, the whole process takes about 45 minutes, including those warm-up exercises. Same with yoga. It takes a while to get there. But once it's installed, a lot of people will not need to do all those things.
I see that in my family.
There you go. Which
Yeah.
means the commitment is just, 10 minutes 3 times a week, because that's what we recommend. Practice it 3 times a week if it works for you. The shaking, with or without the preparatory exercises, what is healing is the tremor, okay? So if you can make it happen without anything else, that makes it really easy to take it on for a test ride and see how it goes.
Yeah, so those neurogenic tremors or that shaking, that's the reflex. And then the exercises that help us access that, well, they're created because we had shut down the reflex. But as we become more integrated with our bodies, mind, body, spirit, then we can have that natural access to the reflex again and don't necessarily have to rely on the exercises as much, is that you can go straight to letting that reflex express itself and letting the body express itself. And I see that in my family. It's really neat that my husband, he does it too, and he can shake, and he doesn't necessarily need to rely on the exercises either. He's gotten to that point, and it's not necessarily that's the goal, but it's neat to know that this is a natural part of the body, and these are ways we are helping kind of retrain those circuits so that we can get over that block of the mind that suppressed it and regain access to this natural reflex. And my kids asked to do it. One of my daughters, when she says that her legs start to feel kicky, and so I think it's a bit of that restless legs, probably just built up tension from whatever in her day. And she can do them on her own. She loves to do it with the family. They will all do it. They love to all do it in the family. And sometimes I'll modify the exercises for them so it's more kid-like. And then we'll shake as a family.
They say the family that shake together stay together.
And that's a really neat thing. And so people could do the TRE exercises. They could use a neurogenic yoga, which is basically the TRE, but in yoga form. And you could, to be able to have that kind of tool for your whole family, because now that we know how to do it, it's just like the gift that keeps on giving. It's this amazing tool that we have, and it's not like I don't have to treat, like my daughter who has the restless legs sometimes, I don't necessarily have to treat her. I don't have to give her a remedy. She is empowered to know how to rebalance herself, to calm her body down, to release this tension. So thank you so much. This is such amazing information for everyone to have and really empowering. And when we're talking about like that shaking and just being in the body, I like to tell people that, even any kind of movement really can help you just get to know your body better. So if in the beginning, you can just dance, that would already be a really great thing for you to do, just to get used to feeling your body. Because often when we're really stressed, we tense up and then we don't move as much. And so just any kind of movement. So if you haven't gotten the TRE class yet, just any kind of movement would be really incredible. And so to sum up, we have introduced tension and trauma release exercises in Neurogenic Yoga. We know that stress is a huge part of life, but there are ways to address it. And we could either go from the mind to the body, or with the TRE Neurogenic Yoga, we can go directly to the body and let the body speak for itself and help us rebalance, since it's a part of nature and it knows how to do that. And I am hoping that this grows and becomes a part of the medical system, the mental health system, or just like yoga, it's becoming more recognized as this amazing tool that people can use and really have something that they can do as a practice, because the life is always going to have ups and downs, and we need a way to help us maintain this. So if you would like to get in touch with Maria, if you're interested in training with her, I'll let Maria tell you how you can do that.
Okay, so thank you. Well, first of all, if you are in Arlene area, take advantage and go and take classes with her or do sessions with her, because she's amazing. I'm in California. I do teach trainings in different states. You can find me at www.trecalifornia.com, which is also my email address if you have any questions, maria@trecalifornia.com. If you're listening from other parts of the country, you can find providers for this work, because it's really recommended to do it with somebody who knows what they're doing the first time. So you can find providers on the Global TRE website, which is www.traumaprevention.com. And soon, in the next couple of months, we're also going to have a US TRE website. We're working on that, because the global is a little confusing since it has all these countries on it. But definitely, if you are local to Arlene, contact her, and otherwise consider being trained. And we can train anybody. You don't have to be a health practitioner. Of course, the majority of the people we train are already working with people, either with their body or with their mind. But also some of our best providers are people who don't have any background like that. They're just natural.
Mm-hmm. And often people will go to the workshops even for, starting with themselves, just personal healing as well, which is really...
Oh, yeah, very good point. There are 2 modules, and the first module is open to anybody who wants to immerse themselves in this work for 3 days, yes.
And this is one of Dr. David Berceli's books, Shake It Off Naturally. So you can read more about TRE there. And I do have TRE workshops regularly in the Atlanta area. You can always go to my website to figure out when those are. It's allworldshealth.com. So thank you so much, Maria. This is really amazing. I love you so much. Maria and I had so many years now, and it's really, really great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Arlene. I love you too, and you're the best. We need to have more doctors like you. The world would be a better place.
Thank you, Maria. I'm working on that, and that's the purpose of this show, the MultiDimensional MD. Here to help wake up medicine, to help empower you to supercharge your health in all dimensions, mind, body, and spirit. I will see you next time on our next show. It's with Flora Corona, using Dr. Bach's flower essences with acupuncture meridians, and that is with Deborah Creighton, who is the co-author of Floral Acupuncture. So stay tuned in 2 weeks at 4 p.m. And we'll see you then. Lots of love to you. See you next time.
Wow, what a show. I feel great already. Don't you all look at health in a whole new light now? If you do, please don't forget to like, comment, and share the show. And you can also watch all of Dr. Arlene's shows on uimediaapp.com. Catch her live every other Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern on WDJY 99.1 FM in Atlanta, Facebook Live, Spreaker, and almost all the podcasting platforms at UI Media Network. You can also write to her at contact@uimedianetwork.org with your questions, concerns, and comments. Like Hippocrates says, everyone has a doctor in him or her. We just have to help it in its work, and Dr. Arlene is here to do just that. The United Intentions Foundation and its associates take no responsibility for the opinions and statements made by the talk show hosts or their guests.